let's talk about 3 ways that you can safely control the heat inside of your reptiles' habitats. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. My name is Zoe, but most people know me as ZAREPTILES, and I had a request to share with you guys how I control the heat that I am providing to my animals so they are getting a safe amount. So let's talk about it. So we're focusing on our 2 kind of groupings of heat. We have our heat mats, our deep heat projectors, our ceramic heat emitters, basically any form of heat that does not provide light. Now we're going to talk about this because a lot of people still use underbelly heat. A lot of beginners use heat mats. So we're going to cover it in this video so we can cover all of our bases. So if you are using something like a heat mat, like what I have right here, that sticks to the bottom of your enclosure, you want to make sure you are using a thermostat. Never use any of these forms of heat that I mentioned that don't provide light without using a thermostat. It can be very dangerous for your animal. The thermostat, just like the thermostat in your house, helps control the heat. So you set it to a certain temperature, and when the heat reaches that certain temperature, the thermostat will shut off your heating unit. That way it does not overheat in your enclosure, it does not burn your animal. Now this is very, very important because reptiles gauge their warmth through the top of their body, not through their belly. They know they're getting warm, but they don't really have any sense of just how warm, which is why we commonly see, especially with things like snakes, that they get burns on their bellies from their heat mat, their heat tape, any form of belly heat. I want to take this moment to mention heat rocks. I know it comes up a lot. They're still sold in stores. Do not use heat rocks. Heat rocks are known to malfunction. They're known to get too hot, and heat rocks are a big reason we see a lot of animals with belly burns. So do yourself a favor and just do not buy heat rocks at all. So back to the thermostat. The thermostat will be probably, if you're getting a common version that you find off of Amazon, it's going to be like a little box with a screen. You set your temperature. You plug your heating device into the thermostat. That's very important. Your thermostat can't control your heating unit unless it's plugged into the thermostat. So plug your heating unit into the thermostat, and then there's going to be a probe. You have to take this probe. This is very important to making the thermostat work. You have to take the probe and put it in contact with the heating unit. The way I like to do this is I put it where the animal is going to be. So if I have a heat mat underneath an enclosure, I'm running the probe into the enclosure and placing it on top of the heat mat. So it's reading the temperature that the animal is going to be exposed to. It is the probe that tells the thermostat what the temperature is, so the thermostat knows whether to shut off the heat or not. If the probe is not correctly placed, then the thermostat is not going to be able to do its job properly. Present day Zoe here. One thing I forgot to mention with thermostat probes is when they're not underbelly heat, like a heat mat. So for example, we've got my Ďumral's boa with his radiant heat panel. Now I can't leave the probe attached to it because it's going to be a lot hotter up here than it is down here where Kronk is hanging out. So I leave the probe down here with his hide. That way it's reading the heat down here where the snake is as opposed to the heat where the radiant heat panel is. So this stays down here. So now let's focus on my favorite form of heat, and that is overhead lighting in the form of halogen bulbs. So this is the most naturalistic and beneficial form of heat that you can provide to your animals. We'll get into the details in a whole other video, but for today, we're talking about how to control the heat. So ultimately, the main thing you would want to do is get a wattage that is going to supply the appropriate amount of heat without you having to adjust anything. That is how you're going to get the most bang for your buck and expand the life of your bulb, in theory. Some bulbs just blow out like crazy, and I don't understand it. But to get the most out of your bulb, it is best if you have a wattage that is already supplying the right amount of heat without adjustments. Now, if you still find that you need some adjustments, what I recommend and what I love are dimmers, plug-in dimmers. So this is just like a dimmer that you would use for a light in your house, But it's even easier because instead of having to do a bunch of wiring, it plugs into an outlet just like a thermostat, just like a lamp, just like anything. So just like our thermostat, you have to plug your heat source directly into the dimmer. So I'm going to take my lamp, I'm going to plug the lamp cord into the dimmer, and then plug the dimmer into the wall. From there, you can use the dimmer switch to turn up the heat or turn down the heat. So it's changing how much light is being put out by the bulb to then change what the temperature is going to be inside the enclosure. So sometimes these are nice just for some fine tuning. Sometimes the lights are almost there, but they just need a little bit of a dimmer to make sure that they are not too hot. So that's usually where these are going to come into play, is when a bulb is a little bit too hot and it just needs a little bit of an adjustment. Now, something I do want to mention before we wrap up is you don't want to use thermostats with halogen bulbs or any bulbs that are producing light unless it is a dimming thermostat. I have never used a dimming thermostat. To the best of my knowledge, they are fairly expensive. I would love to get dimming thermostats, but we have a handheld dimmer. So unless you have a dimming thermostat, we're working with your typical thermostats that you get on Amazon that are fairly inexpensive. You don't want to plug those into your overhead lights, because if you think about it, that light is essentially their sun. It's providing their daylight, it's helping with their circadian rhythm, telling them that it is daytime. If it is attached to a thermostat, it is constantly going to be turning on and off and on and off. You don't want that. It's going to take your enclosure and make it light and dark, light and dark. It's also going to harm the lifespan of your bulb. I use the thermostats for anything that does not provide light, and with my things that do provide light, if I need adjustments, I use a plug-in dimmer. I hope that helps those of you that have been trying to figure all this craziness out. It is confusing, but once you kind of learn it all and get hands-on with it, it makes so much more sense. So that is it for today's video. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you for the next one. Bye!